Welcome back to Three Simple Things, a Gennari Aronson series of tips and information from our corporate and transactional practice. You and your best friend from college decided to start a business together and agreed the fairest thing to do was to split the shares 50-50. Fast forward 2 years. You're trying to raise money, and you've been working 80-hour weeks to try to get your startup off the ground, which is especially stressful because your co-founder bailed to take a full-time job on the West Coast several months ago. You meet with an investor who loves the business model, but is wary of investing because you don't actually control the majority of the shares, and the other half of the stock is controlled by someone who's no longer actively involved in the business. In short, you have both a deadlock problem and a dead equity problem. So how could you have structured your founder equity differently to better position yourself for success? Let's break it down. Deadlock refers to a common consequence of 50-50 ownership, in which the two founders strongly disagree on the proper course of action, and neither of them alone holds sufficient voting power to break the tie. The resulting paralysis can be fatal. One common and fairly obvious way to address deadlock is to avoid 50-50 voting control, either by having one founder own more shares than the other, or by creating a mix of voting and non-voting shares that maintain a 50-50 economic interest while giving one founder voting control. Founders may also agree on specific major issues that require unanimity, such as sale transactions, and allow the managing founder to have the tie-breaking vote on all other matters. At Gennari Aronson, we always encourage founders to take a good, honest look at their relative contributions to the venture as they allocate equity. Not all founders are truly equal. Dead equity, on the other hand, is the result of a significant portion of the cap table being held by persons that are no longer involved in the business, such as departed founders or former employees. If there's too much dead equity in the cap table, investors may be wary, both of your ability to attain necessary voting majorities and of your ability to manage a cap table generally, which could jeopardize your ability to raise needed funds. One common way to address potential debt equity issues in advance is to place forfeiture and repurchase provisions on the founder's shares that expire or vest over time. In our initial hypothetical, when your co-founder left the company, they would have automatically forfeited the unvested portion of their shares. Furthermore, founders sometimes agree to a repurchase right, allowing the company to buy back all of their vested shares upon departure at the then current fair market value. That would allow your co-founder to get credit for the growth of the company during their tenure without retaining equity that would continue to appreciate in value after they've left. Another issue related to founder stock is the transferability of outstanding shares. Without contractual restrictions on transfer, your departed co-founder could conceivably sell their shares to a random third party, or worse, a competitor. Here at Gennari Aronson, we often encourage our startup clients to consider entering into founders agreements that contain rights of first refusal, drag-along provisions in the event of a sale, and other restrictions on transfer that help the company maintain control over its equity and best position itself for success with potential investors and acquirers. This is just a brief overview of some of the basic considerations involved in structuring founders' equity. At Gennari Aronson, our attorneys have decades of combined experience handling a range of corporate matters, so please don't hesitate to reach out to us if we can be of assistance to you and your business.